I was told that I began my escape, and that's all I remembered until I woke up and I was literally surrounded by paramedics and people putting things in my arms.
Once the king of illusion, Criss Angel mesmerized millions, walking on water, levitating over buildings, and escaping deadly traps. But then, he vanished. No scandal, no dramatic exit, just gone. Was it burnout, personal tragedy, or something darker behind the stunts? This is the untold story of the magician who stunned the world and disappeared, leaving fans questioning his fate. In this video, we explore his rise, fame, headline-making stunts, and the personal struggles behind the illusion, revealing a story more shocking than anything performed on stage. The making of a magical prodigy. Before the world knew him as Criss Angel, the master of illusion, there was a boy named Christopher Nicholas Sarantakos, growing up in a modest Greek-American household in East Meadow, New York. From the very beginning, Criss was different. While other kids were content running around the neighborhood or playing sports, he was captivated by the impossible. At 6 years old, his Aunt Stella performed a simple card trick that would change the course of his life forever. It wasn't flashy or complex, but to young Criss, it was a revelation. In that moment, he realized there was a world beyond the ordinary, a world where belief and imagination could bend reality itself. That single trick ignited a lifelong obsession that would consume him entirely. By the age of 7, Criss had transformed his bedroom into a private training ground for magic. He constructed homemade stages, used makeshift props, and performed small shows for his family with a seriousness far beyond his years. He watched VHS tapes of legendary magicians, devoured books on illusion, and practiced tirelessly, perfecting every sleight of hand and escape. School, for him, became a secondary concern. While classmates focused on grades and sports, Criss focused on mastering the craft that would one day define him. His dedication was unwavering. Every movement of the hands, every calculation of timing, every performance, even for an audience of 2, was approached with the rigor of a professional. By 12, he was earning money performing at local birthday parties, not merely for pocket change, but for the realization that his passion could become a lifelong vocation. Yet, it wasn't just talent or discipline that shaped him, it was personal tragedy. His father, John Sarantakos, a hardworking man who ran a donut shop and later a restaurant, became ill with stomach cancer during Criss's formative teenage years. Doctors initially gave him 3 weeks to live, but John defied the odds, surviving for over 3 years. Criss spent that time by his father's side, witnessing a battle that would leave a permanent imprint on his life. He later explained that watching his father fight against death taught him the power of the mind over the body. This lesson would later inform every stunt, every escape, every moment of danger that would define his career. Magic, for Criss, wasn't just about entertaining others. It became a way to transform fear into power, grief into motivation, and personal loss into extraordinary achievement. Family support played an equally vital role. His mother, Dimitra, and his siblings nurtured his obsession, often acting as the first audience for his elaborate tricks. While the rest of the world might have questioned the hours he spent alone in his room, practicing and perfecting illusions, his family recognized a spark of genius. They didn't just support his dreams, they became part of them. That balance of love, discipline, and relentless curiosity created a foundation that allowed Criss to explore magic with fearless intensity. By the time he reached his teenage years, it was clear this wasn't a hobby. It was a calling. He wasn't just learning magic, He was training for a life that would one day captivate the globe. The combination of early obsession, rigorous self-training, and profound personal experiences gave Criss a unique perspective on the world. He approached life itself like an illusion to be mastered, seeing every challenge as an opportunity to create something remarkable. His imagination, once sparked by a simple card trick, evolved into a lifelong quest for mastery, pushing him to experiment, innovate, and eventually redefine what the world could expect from a magician. Long before the fame, the bright lights, and the death-defying stunts, there was a boy in East Meadow whose curiosity, drive, and resilience would lay the groundwork for one of the most extraordinary careers in the history of magic. Little did the world know, this boy from New York would push magic and himself to dangerous new heights, from struggling teen to magic maverick. As Criss Angel moved from boyhood into his teenage years, his obsession with magic intensified, transforming from a private hobby into a determined pursuit of professional mastery. While most teens worried about school, friends, or weekend plans, Criss was performing at every opportunity he could find. Birthday parties, diners, local nightclubs, backyard events. No venue was too small, no audience too limited. Each performance was treated with the same intensity and discipline that would later define his worldwide career. Even at a young age, it was clear that Criss wasn't simply practicing tricks. He was learning how to command attention, hold an audience captive, and create moments of genuine astonishment. There was an energy, an intensity, and a raw passion in his performances that made people sit up and notice, even if the venues were modest and the pay minimal. Criss's teenage years were not easy. Rejection became a constant companion. Local clubs and venues often turned him away, deeming him too inexperienced, too young, or too unconventional. Financial struggles weighed heavily as well. Despite performing constantly, he juggled multiple jobs to support himself, from working small gigs to odd jobs in the community. Yet, giving up was never an option. For Criss, magic was not a pastime. It was a calling, a path he would follow no matter the obstacles. This period of grinding and struggle forged his work ethic and resilience, qualities that would later allow him to handle the immense pressures of fame and high-risk stunts. The teenage magician was learning early that success was rarely instantaneous. It demanded endurance, patience, and relentless commitment. This was the time when Criss's individuality and his skill became pretty evident. With the likes of Harry Houdini as his inspiration, he would not just want to reproduce the tricks of the past. He wanted to come up with something new, to redefine magic, and to get rid of traditional boundaries. He intentionally stayed away from other magicians and wanted to build his own identity instead of being influenced by the rules of the existing magic community. Being this restless and ambitious to create something really new, he decided to play around with the merging of illusions with music, storytelling, and theatrical elements. He pictured such performances where narrative, drama, and emotion were to be as much a part of the technical execution of the tricks as the tricks themselves. By following the path of combining magic with rock music and ultra-active stage presence, Criss was already setting up a style that would come to win millions later. The moment he turned 21, Criss made the key decision to relocate to New York City for the sake of the bigger stage and more opportunities the city promised. The city, with its lively arts and a very competitive entertainment industry, gave him challenges that were scaring him and at the same time making him feel ecstatic. Criss performed tirelessly in clubs, theaters, and at private events, and eventually he got to be known for his extravagant and imaginative performances. His timetable was so tight that at times he would do up to 20 shows a day. But He was the kind of artist who would thrive under such difficult circumstances. The years of hard and continuous work made him a master in his art, and he would not only know the technical aspects of magic, but also be an expert in the artistry of performance and audience interaction. He was already a performer who would both enchant and amaze, someone who would be able to monopolize the attention of everyone who was lucky to see him. The constant through all the difficulties was none other than Criss's family. Dimitra, his mother, was always there for him, going to shows and being his emotional support. The family's encouragement served to stabilize him in the midst of the city's chaos and the grind of performing. That love foundation, along with his unyielding dedication, powered Criss to push limits, take chances, and nurture the style that would eventually change the face of modern magic. When he finally came up as a popular figure in the magic community, he had not only achieved mastery over his craft, but also developed a unique character, daring, expressive, and unforgettable. With every daring performance, Criss was rewriting the rules of magic, setting the stage for his explosive rise to fame. The show that shocked the world. By the mid-2000s, Criss Angel had built a reputation as a daring and inventive magician. But it wasn't until Mindfreak premiered on July 20th, 2005, that the world truly took notice. The show wasn't just another televised magic program, it was a complete reinvention of what audiences expected from magic. From the very first episode, viewers were thrust into a high-octane spectacle where traditional tricks were combined with death-defying stunts, rock concert energy, and cinematic storytelling. Criss Angel didn't merely perform illusions, he challenged the very limits of perception, daring viewers to question what was real and what was possible. Mindfreak achieved celebrity status for its mixed-up of street magic, close-up sleight of hand, and huge physical feats that pushed Criss's body to the edge. He was hanged from helicopters with hooks through his skin. He got to be in between the two buildings in Las Vegas, and even he did the water thing. These instances were meant not only to amaze, but also to create a very strong feeling that would lead the spectators to experience danger and marvel at the same time. There were no tricks or laughter in Criss's performances. Rather, they were intense, dramatic, and full of emotion. Every episode was like a live-action movie, with super powerful stunts that would have left the audience stunned, unable to rationalize or deny the existence of magic, and the laws of nature being broken at the same time. The impact of Mindfreak went beyond many other aspects, apart from the entertainment world. The signature of Criss was the combination of dark styling, high octane, and dramatic narration. The magician's technology that flourished for one whole generation of virtuosos and entertainers. The kids in the world of magic got the spirit of pushing their limits, testing out even more daring forms, and breaking the magic rules. The performance, however, was not without its controversies. Some within the magic community condemned Criss for being more preoccupied with visual effects and shock than with the classical techniques. Moreover, there were also some who questioned the safety of the stunts performed or whether they were actually staged. Nevertheless, all this criticism did not bother Criss. On the contrary, he was more determined than ever to push magic into the future. He believed that the modern-day audience could be captivated if the magicians could package creativity, risk, and fun all together into one thrilling experience. Despite the strain on his body and mind, Criss was, in fact, the one who flourished through the trials of Mindfreak. For the duration of 6 seasons and 96 episodes, he never ceased to outperform himself in the sense of creating bigger and more extravagant illusions that would eventually draw more and more people to watch and be amazed. Acts like walking on water, getting out from being buried under cement blocks, and even getting run over by a steamroller were incorporated into the show, with each stunt being riskier than the previous one. But while the world cheered for his impossible feats, life behind the curtain was far more complicated, and the personal costs of fame were beginning to mount. The Vegas Dream. After the monumental success of Mindfreak, Criss Angel set his sights on a new frontier: Las Vegas. The city, known for its bright lights, grandiose shows, and legendary performers, offered the perfect stage for a magician of his ambition. Criss envisioned a live spectacle that would merge the theatricality of Cirque du Soleil with the death-defying stunts that had made him famous on television. In 2008, he launched Believe at the Luxor Hotel, a show designed to electrify audiences with illusions, acrobatics, and a narrative as bold as his vision. On paper, it seemed like the ultimate combination of artistry and spectacle. In practice, however, the road was far from smooth. Right from the start, critics were very tough, and opinions among the viewers were split. Some were dumbfounded by the boldness and the technical mastery that made the illusions, while others simply could not get the idea of magic, rock-inspired theatrics, and circus coming together mixed up. The production, although it was full of cleverness, did not click with the audience right away. This was a blow for Criss, but he determined not to give up on his dream. He then worked ceaselessly, took over full creative control, and came up with a new version of the production. As a result, by 2013, Believe had been transformed into Mindfreak Live, a sophisticated and thrilling show that perfectly blended magic, danger, and storytelling. The audience's nights were full of awe and wonder as they got to see the impossible stunts and how one man managed to make the unbelievable look so simple. Nonetheless, the stage was very bright, but the fame brought along with it a price that was often unseen. The rigors of a daily show were very hard to bear. Each stunt, be it hanging by hooks or underwater escapes, put a lot of pressure on Criss's body. Injuries, bruises, and tiredness were part of the deal. Besides the physical toll, the mental and emotional burden was just as heavy. To keep the level of performance up while creating new illusions demanded concentration, imagination, and stamina that were not common to most artists. The border separating showmanship and personal health became hazier, and the costs of victory in terms of human life became clearer. Las Vegas had given a fantasy, but it was a fantasy that not many could afford to pay for. The personal adversities didn't end with this. The year 2015 marked a point when Criss had to go through the most heartbreaking experience of his life. His son, Johnny Christopher, was diagnosed with acute lymphoblastic leukemia. All at once, the stage, lights, and audience disappeared from the picture. The performer, who had been through the most incredible and dangerous acts, now faced a struggle that was even more frightening than anything else: the struggle for his child's life. This moment was a turning point for Criss. Everything became secondary to his role as a father. The fame he had acquired with so much effort, the shows he had at last perfected, and the accolades he had received. He completely changed his priorities, and the magician who had once basked in the light of the spotlight was now stepping back to devote his time to family matters. While the stage lights burned bright in Las Vegas, the battles behind the curtain revealed a side of Criss Angel that no audience had ever seen, and it would forever change the story of his fame. A father's fight. Even for a man who had dangled from helicopters, walked on water, and escaped locked tanks, nothing could have prepared Criss Angel for the news that would change his life forever. In 2015, his 20-month-old son, Johnny Christopher, was diagnosed with acute lymphoblastic leukemia, a fast-moving and aggressive form of cancer. The announcement hit Criss and his family with a force far greater than any stage stunt or death-defying act. Suddenly, the magician who had risked life and limb for the thrill of illusion was confronted with a real, terrifying battle, one with stakes far higher than any performance could ever simulate. The hospital replaced the spotlight, chemotherapy sessions replaced applause, fear replaced adrenaline. Criss immediately put his career on hold. The shows, appearances, and commitments that had once defined him became secondary to his child's fight. Days and nights were spent in hospital rooms, holding Johnny's tiny hand, monitoring every reaction, every treatment, every moment of suffering. The physical and emotional strain was immense. Criss has described this period as the darkest chapter of his life, filled with fear, exhaustion, and profound helplessness. While audiences saw the confident, daring magician, behind the scenes, he was grappling with anxiety, sorrow, and the responsibility of navigating a life-threatening illness for the most important person in his life. But in true form, Criss refused to let despair define him. Even amid the chaos, he sought to transform his pain into action. Recognizing the lack of funding and awareness for pediatric cancer research, he launched the HELP Foundation, Heal Every Life Possible, dedicated to supporting families like his own and promoting groundbreaking research. Criss didn't just donate money, he threw himself into organizing large-scale fundraising events, including the Help for Hope Telethon, bringing together celebrities, magicians, musicians, and fans for one mission: to save lives. He used his public platform not to seek sympathy, but to shed light on an issue that remained too often invisible. In doing so, he became a voice for families facing similar struggles, turning private anguish into public advocacy. During this time, Criss's approach to magic also evolved. The performances he continued to create were infused with a new emotional depth. The thrill of danger and spectacle was now intertwined with themes of hope, courage, and resilience. Every illusion became not only entertainment, but an expression of perseverance, a reflection of his son's bravery in the face of fear. Audiences began to see a different side of Criss Angel, not just a daredevil or illusionist, but a devoted father and fighter. The personal tragedy he endured reshaped his artistry, infusing it with meaning and emotional resonance beyond the visual spectacle. Though Johnny eventually entered periods of remission, Criss's vigilance and dedication never wavered. He continues to advocate for pediatric cancer research and share updates on his son's health, ensuring that every performance, every public appearance carries both awareness and purpose. Through this unimaginable challenge, Criss Angel demonstrated that the greatest feats of courage are not measured by illusions or stunts, but by the ability to confront life's darkest moments with love, resilience, and an unwavering dedication. While his personal battles demanded all of his attention, whispers and rumors in the public sphere began to circulate, mysteries and controversies that would soon shadow the legend of Criss Angel, reinventing magic through adversity. For most performers, fame and recognition mark the pinnacle of success. But for Criss Angel, the true challenge lay in balancing personal tragedy with his relentless drive to innovate. After the intense and public battles surrounding his son Johnny's illness, Criss returned to his craft with a renewed sense of purpose. Magic was no longer just about awe or spectacle. It became a medium through which he could process grief, channel emotions, and connect with audiences on a profoundly human level. Every illusion, every stunt carried an added layer of meaning, transforming performances into experiences that were simultaneously thrilling and emotionally resonant. Criss's return to the stage was marked by a reinvention of his signature show. Mindfreak Live, which debuted after his Las Vegas revival, reflected a new maturity in his artistry. The stunts remained death-defying, the illusions grand and mesmerizing, but there was a notable shift in tone. The narrative became richer, emphasizing resilience, triumph over fear, and the transformative power of belief. Audiences weren't just spectators. They were participants in a story of human endurance, witnessing a magician who had faced life's harshest realities and emerged determined to inspire. In many ways, this reinvention proved that adversity could be an alchemist, turning pain into creativity and personal struggle into public art. Criss did not limit himself to the stage and merged magic with advocacy, so to speak. He took upon himself the role of a public awareness campaigner, using Johnny's story as the main attraction and the emotional power of his own journey to draw funds for the pediatric oncology research. He used the shows as a medium to deliver the message and called them not simply entertainment, but the very creators of actions, through the combination of allowing the audience to see the social responsibility aspect of the magic. The road taken was certainly not the easiest for the magician's world, where the pantomimes had always been about release, amazement, and visual trickery. Criss has now made a little more complicated, but this time it was the emotional truth. The performer was showing the audience that the magician behind the tricks was also a human being who was at the same time vulnerable and deeply committed to the causes beyond himself. And thus, he was giving the audience a little more of the rare quality that few performers master, which is authenticity. The transformation has not only been reflected in his personality, but also in his artistic process. Criss tried to master new illusions with the attitude of a person who has been through tough times. Shock value or spectacularity wasn't the exclusive driving force anymore. Each act was meant to be felt on different levels, physically, emotionally, and narratively. The techniques have become more polished, the presentations more thoughtful, and the combination of music, lighting, and choreography has reached new peaks. Criss's growth as an artist symbolized his personal suffering's teachings, that the most significant accomplishments are sometimes the most difficult ones, and that artistic originality can be the byproduct of hardships even when they are over. This time, perhaps more than anything, confirmed Criss Angel's status as not only a magician, but also a storyteller and a visionary. He made it clear that magic could be turned from just an ordinary performance into an artist's and the audience's emotional expression, such as courage, hope, and resilience, among others, that are capable of inspiring them. He did it through the difficulty of the times by reinventing himself and showing that even when life cornered you, it was still possible to rise, create, and transform both yourself and the art you love. The hardship Criss has been through during this time was a strong indication that he was not only a magician, but also a purpose seeker who could transform obstacles into opportunities. Yet, even as Criss reinvented his craft and touched countless lives, a shroud of mystery and speculation continued to follow him. Rumors and dark whispers that fueled the fascination with the man behind the illusions. Myth, mystery, and misunderstanding. As Criss Angel's fame soared, so too did the aura of mystery surrounding him. His gothic appearance, black eyeliner, brooding persona, and elaborate stage effects led fans and skeptics alike to speculate about his life beyond the spotlight. Whispers circulated about his connection to the occult, supernatural powers, or secret societies. Some online communities even suggested that his stylized logo contained hidden messages linked to dark or satanic symbolism. Whether fueled by genuine curiosity, fear, or sensationalism, These rumors amplified Criss's mystique, transforming him from a magician into a figure of modern legend. The line between performer and persona blurred, leaving audiences unsure where the illusions ended and the man began. Criss Angel, far from shying away from speculation, leaned into the enigma. His shows were deliberately infused with gothic imagery, occult motifs, and theatrical drama, keeping audiences guessing and amplifying the intensity of his performances. Yet behind the smoke and mirrors, the truth was remarkably straightforward. Every trick, every stunt, was a product of meticulous planning, tireless practice, and innovative engineering. Criss repeatedly emphasized in interviews that there were no supernatural forces at play. The danger, drama, and mystique were all carefully orchestrated illusions designed to challenge perception and inspire wonder. In a sense, the rumors became part of the art itself, enhancing the emotional impact of the illusions while keeping audiences enthralled. Despite the controversy, Criss's commitment to authenticity remained unwavering. While critics sometimes accused him of relying on shock value rather than skill, his technical expertise, creativity, and relentless work ethic were undeniable. Every illusion required precise timing, rigorous rehearsal, and often physical endurance bordering on the extreme. Hanging from hooks, levitating between buildings, or escaping underwater demanded not only courage, but a deep understanding of physics, mechanics, and audience psychology. The mystery that surrounded him was less about supernatural power and more about the sheer mastery and audacity behind each act, abilities few could replicate. As the rumors and legends grew, the man behind the illusions continued to perform, to advocate, and to redefine what it meant to be more than just a magician. But what finally caused Criss Angel to step away from the spotlight entirely? Legacy of a legend. The world-renowned magician and performer Criss Angel, who would always leave the audience speechless with his incredible and sometimes unbelievable stunts and tricks, has, however, not been very visible in the limelight lately. A question that fans of Mindfreak or of his Las Vegas shows would probably ask is, what happened to him that he disappeared? The explanation would point more to reevaluation of one's life, personal development, and a strong feeling of being on the right track than to scandal or exhaustion. The artist's retreat from the limelight is indicative of a person who realizes that the most significant accomplishments cannot take place on a stage. They must be done in the very course of life. Family is the core of his retreat. The moment his child, Johnny Christopher, was diagnosed with leukemia, Criss had to confront a situation that was even bigger than any of the stage challenges he had ever faced. The illusionist, who had been so skilled at defying gravity, escaping from water, and burning himself up alive, decided that no trick could help him to get through the emotional reality of being a parent in crisis. 100% of his time was then given to the care of his son. No matter what it was, the whole focus was on making sure that Johnny survived and was happy. The fame lights were turned down, not because of the loss of willingness or creativity, but because life called for a different kind of heroism, one that was silent and one that did not need an audience or applause. Criss Angel changed the choice of priorities to family, and he would rather choose to prioritize creative freedom and personal fulfillment over the relentless pace of the famous life. The physical requirements of his illusions, the very ones that made him popular, are brutal, and to keep them at a high level requires years of dedication, risking, and sacrificing. He might have left the public eye, but he still controls the time, place, and manner of his performance, ensuring that every act of his is deliberate, inspired, and in tune with his artistic vision. This decision demonstrates a greater insight into success. Real success is not when people see you everywhere, but when you affect the world around you, the lives of people you have touched, and the legacy you have left behind. Criss Angel's journey shows that magic isn't just about tricks. It's about resilience, love, and transforming personal pain into something extraordinary. If you found his story inspiring, hit like, share your favorite Criss Angel moment in the comments, and subscribe to discover more unbelievable stories behind the world's most fascinating figures.